A hitman with a heart of gold and a wonderful mustache. Let's talk about Dusk for a Hitman. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass, and I'm here to talk to you about Dusk for a Hitman, which is coming to digital and on demand on April 19th, 2024. It is a movie that is based on a real-life person, a real-life hitman in Canada, and the depths that he had to go for his job and then to eventually get out of his job. My hot take is I think you should watch it later. I liked a lot about this. I love the acting, I love the style, I love the music, but it was a little bit slow and had a little bit of an unfulfilling, not a bad ending, but just it kind of ended a little bit too soon. So overall, I think you should watch it later. Maybe wait for it to come to streaming, or I guess see it on demand if the price is right. So I'm gonna tell you a little about the film, a few things I like, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the ending section. If you don't know what happens to this movie, I would turn it off when I get to the ending section. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague, I'll keep it spoiler free. I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. So, in Dust for Hitman, and this is a film that takes place in Canada, so all the names are French. I am going to mispronounce probably all of them, so bear with me. Dust for Hitman follows Donald Lavoie, who is a notorious hitman for this mob boss, Claude Dubois. The Dubois brothers were this like notorious crime family, and Claude Dubois was, I guess, in Montreal, and his main kind of like hitman, his main person was Donald Lavoie. They had a pretty good relationship until something started happening that caused that relationship to fracture. So, does Donald get out of this? Is this Dusk for a Hitman because he rides off into the sunset, or does he go into the ground? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. So, things I liked about this movie. The first, I love the music. It is great music. It's like high energy 80s style music that really fits with the timeline. This movie takes place in like the late 70s, early 80s. Everything about it is perfect, and the music definitely helps to set that stage very early on. The second thing I love the period. I call it the period. You can go with the style as well. It is an 80s film and everything looks the part. Like the clothes are perfect, the hairstyles are perfect, the fantastic mustaches, the cars are all classic. The film feels like you are transported back into the 80s. And I love that. I love seeing it. I love the characters' look. I love the style. I love how this movie like really lets you kind of get into this time period. And the last thing I love the characters. Like this is a film that it would be tough, especially the main character, Donald Lavoie. Éric Bruneau does a fantastic job here because he plays a very complicated character. He plays a character that is a killer, like a ruthless killer, but also you have to feel sympathy for him, or else you don't really care about the Dust for Hitman. You don't really care about the movie. And I think he does a good job of balancing that line between being a criminal, being like a scary person, but then also being like a sympathetic character. You also have Claude Dubois, who is he is an interesting one, and their relationship is fun to see at times. Like I think the relationship between these two characters really kind of drives it. And I also really like Sylvain and Marcel, who plays a cop, Detective Burns, later on in the film. I liked that interaction as well. So overall, look, some really great characters. You kind of need that for a movie like this. It's more of a kind of drama than it is an action movie, and so you need really good characters to drive the story forward. So, all that being said, things I didn't love as much about the movie. The first, it's a little bit slow. Like I expected this to be a high action movie, and maybe that's my fault. Like I expected an American version of this movie. This is a Canadian version, so it is a little bit slower. There's a lot more character development. There is not as much kind of big action for a film about a hitman as I expected. Part of that is because Donald was so good that his stuff is a little bit more surgical than normal. And part of it is that the movie focuses a lot on the characters and kind of the internal conflicts that happen. So it was slow at parts. I liked a lot about the movie, so it's not like slow through and through, but there were a lot of parts that slowed the pace of the film. The second thing I didn't love as much, there's a few moments where there's some CG used, most noticeably for some of the blood. There's CG for some of the gunshots, and also some smoke from the gunshots is CG. It looks CG. It's not bad. Like again, this film doesn't have a ton of action, so these scenes aren't super prominent, but it is very noticeable when it happens. And the last thing I didn't love as much, I didn't love the ending. Like the film has definitely an arc, but it feels like right when you get to big moment, the film just ends. And I would have liked to see a little bit more. Maybe again, that's the American in me, like wanting to see like the full conclusion, and maybe you don't actually need that. But for me, I expected, maybe about 10 more minutes of this movie. And that's actually not a bad thing, right? Like if I wanted more of this film, that's usually a good sign for the overall quality of the movie. So all that being said, Dusk for a Hitman comes to digital and on demand on April 19th, 2024. Like I said, I think you should watch it later, wait for it to come to streaming, or if you check it out on digital and on demand, just make sure the price is right. So if you do check it out, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I would love to hear it. And I'm going to very quickly go into the ending. Again, this is a true story, so the ending isn't, a big surprise if you want to do like a Google search, but I'm gonna very quickly go into the ending just so you can understand like the big conflict and what the Dusk for a Hitman actually is. So in Dusk for a Hitman, you have, like I said, Donald Lavoie, who is a hitman, a killer for this mob boss Claude Dubois, and their relationship is really interesting. Like it feels like they have a very solid relationship, although a lot of Donald's like I don't know coworkers, I guess, henchmen, people that he is going on hits with, they don't seem to last very long. Like he is a ruthless killer, and it kind of like comes clear in the very first scene when he has to go take out someone. They wait for him. They wait for him to get on the toilet, and they go and like shoot him when he's on the toilet. And then after the henchman person like comes and helps him like put the body in the car, he just pops that person too and puts him in the car. I guess that person wasn't being very reliable. He was nervous. He was worried that he was gonna like spill the beans and get him in trouble. But Donald is like ruthless. There's a couple people, coworkers, henchmen that he kills along the way just because he's worried that they're going to like spill the beans, or he's worried they're not going to be reliable. So again, a ruthless killer, a tough character to be kind of sympathetic to, but Éric Bruneau does like make him more sympathetic. I mean, first, he has this great look, like he has this wonderful mustache, this fantastic mustache, just a strong, powerful character. But he also kind of balances that line between being ruthless, like his kills are very ruthless, and then trying to give you a little bit more about like his internal demons. Like the character is drinking a lot, especially when he's not on the job. He loves his family, he likes being with his family, but he also kind of is aggressive with them when they try to question him. He is a complicated character, but you do start to kind of like feel some sympathy for him, especially when there is this big choice that has to happen that causes him to turn on Claude. And that choice is when Claude tells Donald to kill his brother. His brother has been playing Donald's brother, not Claude's brother, Donald's brother. Donald's brother was kind of a little bit of a mess up. He had been to prison earlier. He was always like in these like small crime things that like didn't really pan out. He wasn't super reliable. He was a little bit more aggressive. Donald actually took him on a job earlier, and his brother like went too aggressive and beat the person they're trying to get money from very badly. Not a good thing when you're trying to get money from someone to like actually make it so they like can't work. And so his brother had always been kind of a thorn in his side, but it's still his brother. Now, when Donald was in prison for a brief stint, uh, his brother was apparently selling magic mushrooms. It said in Claude's bar. I assume it was just his territory. Maybe it was actually in his bar. Not a good thing to do. And so Claude wants him taken out. Claude doesn't like him. Claude thinks that he's a liability. And so he orders Donald to take him out. Now, Claude kind of gets ready for this. He gets to his brother's place. It's this kind of awkward scene where he's like learning about the magic mushrooms. They take some magic mushrooms. Again, because Donald is always self-medicating, either with alcohol or drugs. So he takes some magic mushrooms with his brother. They go on a walk. It's this like awkward scene when he's like, let's go for a walk. He's like, okay. And they go out for like a walk in the woods. And while they're there, Donald pulls a gun on his brother and then tells him, like, you've got to go. Like, leave now, get out of here. And then then Donald goes and like burns all the magic mushrooms. So it basically kind of gets rid of the threat without killing his brother. But this is not good for Claude. Claude kind of demands loyalty. Claude demands perfection, as you can see from a lot of the kills. He like kills people indiscriminately if he thinks that they're going to be a problem. So now that Donald has kind of crossed him, Donald is now, in trouble. Now, and this was a sad scene to me. Like I thought like this was a little bit too extreme for me because like Claude and Donald were very close. Like Claude trusted him. He showed him like where a stash of his money was. He like took care of him. So it was almost like a father to Donald, and then he like quickly turned on him as soon as he didn't like take out his brother. He was like instantly gone, which I was a little surprised at. I thought that he would have a little bit more leeway. Again, like it's his brother, maybe he would understand, but nope, Donald's already on the naughty list. Now Donald finds out about this when they're at a wedding for one of the henchmen in the mob, and at the end of the wedding, everyone kind of like clears out except for a few people of, mostly male enforcer type people. And they surround Donald. Donald sniffs it out pretty quickly, knows what's going to happen. Claude threatens him, but Donald is able to escape. He flees, he gets out of there, and then goes to this like friend in the woods that he has stayed with before. So it's kind of not the best place for him to be because he has stayed there before to lay low. I assume Claude knows about this, and so he goes to stay in the woods with his family to wait out the heat to try to figure out what was going on. And he needed one more job to get some money. He just wanted to get some money so they could go south. don't know if they're going to America or just south in Canada away from Montreal, but he needed one more job. And his friend, who was also seemed to be kind of like a gangster or some sort of like criminal, was like, I got the perfect job. They do a bank robbery. Everything goes successfully. They get $100,000 ready to kind of move south. But that is when the cops show up and they arrest Donald, they capture him, and then we get to meet Inspector Burns. We met him earlier briefly, but now we really get to meet him. He is pushing on Donald to, turn state's evidence to kind of narc on his boss. And Donald's like, look, I can't. Like I'm dead I'm dead if I talk to him. I'm dead if I get out. Like, there's nothing for me. And also during that interview talking about the heist and how they caught Donald, they find out that the cops had been bugging Claude's phone. So that's where they found out where Donald was. Claude knew about it. I assume, presumably, he was going to send people up there. Like I said, not the best place for Donald to hide, but the cops got there first. They arrested him. They might have saved his life at that point. I don't know. But you also find out that Claude put out a $1 million bounty on Donald's head. So their relationship had fractured very quickly and very badly. $1 million. That is a lot of money. But I guess Donald is a very dangerous person. So I guess you need a big amount of money to entice people to go do it. But Donald does agree to help if this inspector will help his family. And it's weird. The inspector like can't make specific promises, but he's like, we will do whatever we can. So I guess this is enough for Donald, and he starts to turn state's evidence. He starts telling the inspector about things that happened, about like different bodies. He gives him information about where bodies are buried, on what happened to certain people, and he gives him information about this like particularly brutal crime that happened where it was one of the like later hits that Donald did where they went to take out this person named Pelletier, and while they were there, the his Pelletier's like girlfriend was there, and so the person that Donald was with got spooked when he saw the girlfriend, shot her a couple times, and then Donald had to shoot Pelletier. But the girlfriend was still alive, and both of their guns had like jammed. Donald didn't have any more bullets in his gun. The other person's gun had jammed, and so Donald has to go and like basically grab a knife and take the girlfriend out with a knife. A very brutal scene, and one that's interesting because he's like being, I guess kind of like merciful by killing her because she was shot and bleeding out, but he does it in a very brutal way. He stabs her like I think 9 times. So not just like a quick kill, like a bunch of stabs, a very brutal killing. And I think this was one of the scenes that showed like Donald was kind of cracking. Before this, he was super cool, super calm, very kind of surgical. And now it seems like maybe he is his work is getting to him. He is always self-medicating, and now he is like brutalizing this person, trying to be merciful, but then also like stabbing her a little bit too much, maybe showing some frustration with his job and his life situation. So Donald does tell about that murder as well, and the cop like recognizes like, you stabbed her 9 times. And he's like, no, I didn't. There was no way. He's like, shows a picture like, you stabbed her 9 times. Do this all. Donald is giving a bunch of states information, and eventually he has to testify for the cops. He has to testify for in the trial against Claude and some other people. Now, he always thought that if he testified, he would get to like go into witness protection with his family. They would still be a family. But what we find out is that his family was safe. They went into hiding, but Donald could never see them again. He was kind of a known quantity. They were worried that if he goes to see his family, like he would be dead, his family would be dead. And so he turns state's evidence. He like testifies against Claude, and his family like goes and he never sees them again, which is a big tragedy of this. Like it seems like he did a lot of this for his family. He loved his family clearly, and so the fact that he is no longer able to see his family, but he gets to keep them alive, that is a big kind of like tragedy in this movie. Now, Donald does eventually testify. There is a scene where he like gets ready for court. They shave him. He still has his wonderful mustache, but they shave, he cleans himself up. He gets ready for court. He gets into this car with the inspector who has become kind of like a friend for him at this point. They drive to the courthouse. They pull into the courthouse. You're ready to see this big, powerful testimony. And that's it. That's when the movie ends. And that was like a surprising part for me because I was expecting to see at least a little bit of testimony, see some courtroom drama, see something. You don't get that. You get a black screen. You get to find out a little bit more. It turns out that Donald got 8 years for that bank robbery that got him caught. Claude got 25 years, which seems pretty low, but I'm guessing in Canada that is the maximum sentence you can get. That's probably their life sentence, and they probably don't have like concurrent sentences and things like that. So he probably got the maximum that you could get in the Canadian justice system, which is 25 years for all the bad stuff he did. Doesn't seem that intense, but hey, you know what? I guess 25 years is a long time. And you do find out that Donald is still alive. He is out there somewhere. He is in witness protection. So he survived, but he has never seen his family again. So what kind of life is that? It is a life, but at least his family is safe as well. And then the movie concludes, like during the credits, you see like a recreation of an interview that Donald did. It was like I think his only interview they did in like 1982. So after he testified, after he was in prison still, he did an interview for this Canadian TV show. And he talks a little bit more about why he did it. You find out that it was it was ego and power were the two things that he craved the most, and then his family and money were part of that as well. So I thought that was interesting. It gives you a little bit more insight into this overall character. But it is a recreation. It's not like the real footage. I kind of wish that they would have played clips of the actual interview footage. I thought that would have been interesting to see like the real person. I had to go look up afterwards to see like what he actually looked like. But again, that is Dusk For A Hitman. So like I said, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed a lot about it. It had some wonderful style, some great characters, and some really wonderful music. So definitely check out eventually. And if you do see it, let me know what you thought. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I would love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you. Like big time criminals in Montreal, I think, Quebec, one of those places.